Would you consider yourself a whistleblower?
Whoa. Well, I guess it depends who you ask. If you're asking me, no, I'm a patriot. There's whistleblowers come forward when there is some sort of malfeasance or problem in the government, which I did do, but I'm not really looking for protection like a whistleblower.
The reason why I asked that, because everywhere when I saw you being painted of on the articles, right? If I go online and I type in your name and I type in whistleblower, Rob, if you could do that. So Guardian, whistleblower who spoke out on UFO claims Pentagon tried to discredit him. Luis Elizondo lodges complaint with Defense Inspector General. Defense Department accused of disinformation campaign, right? Okay. Then I go to the next one, Fox News. Fox, this is 2024, June 2024, if you want to pull that up. U.S. whistleblower says he's being threatened as congressman, warns protections are a joke.
Yeah.
Elizondo, former head of Advanced Aerospace, again, ATIP, said he's faced threats as he pushes for UFO transparency, right? And continuously, those two are linked. You're saying you're not a whistleblower.
Well, whistleblowers, there's a legal definition of whistleblower. Then there's a vernacular. So if you want to actually be a government whistleblower,
right, it's
usually involving fraud, waste, and abuse. So if you look at the legal definition of whistleblower, it's very narrowly defined. The problem is that in the vernacular, the term whistleblower is used for other things beyond just fraud, waste, and abuse. But from a governmental perspective, that term is very specific for the most part to relate to some sort of malfeasance or fraud, waste, and abuse. And that's why people are very narrowly defined for legal protections as a whistleblower. Now, we as a society consider anybody who's willing to step forward and basically draw attention to something that's wrong as a whistleblower. So that's why I'm hesitant to call myself a whistleblower if I don't fall under the legal definition of a whistleblower according to the U.S. government. But at the same time, I'm doing what a lot of whistleblowers do.
Does the U.S. government think you're a whistleblower?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I think some do, and I think probably some think I'm the devil.
But the U.S. government, do they think you're a whistleblower? Because, and the reason why I'm asking this question is, if they think you're the whistleblower and you're being everywhere, Wikipedia whistleblower, Fox whistleblower, Guardian whistleblower, everywhere you're painted and written about. If the average person looked you up, they would say this guy's a whistleblower. But if that's the case, how do you still hold on to a secret, clearance? How does that happen?
Well, because I haven't done anything wrong. I haven't broken the law. I haven't leaked information. I'm not like Edward Snowden or anything like that. Yeah,
but if I'm the U.S. government, if you truly are somebody that's going out there and the government's not happy for you, I would cut your secret clearance overnight. I'd be like, guys, this guy's going out there talking. What makes you think one day he's not going to get drunk or have a beer with somebody and maybe he's sitting with a celebrity and wants to brag about how much he knows? We got to cut this guy's secret clearance off. Why are we keeping him on that? Why are they still giving you secret clearance?
Well, first of all, if they did that, it's called retribution, which is illegal, right?
So they can't do that?
No, they can't. Well, they tried, but they failed. And there are, by the way, I will also say in the government's defense, there's also a large group of people in the government that want this conversation to occur. They look at this topic.
Well, I agree.
Secrecy has a shelf life. Some people think secrecy is like a fine bottle of wine, and the longer you keep a cork on it, the better it gets, when in reality, I've told people that secrets are like vegetables in your refrigerator. And if you keep them there too long, they start to rot and they stink, and now you got a real big mess on your hands. And so this is very much the same way. I believe now that there is a group of individuals in the government that are actively wanting this conversation to occur. We certainly know that's the case in Congress right now. So, and this is, by the way, I think almost historic, because it's one of the few bipartisan issues, whether you're a liberal or conservative, that's actually being championed in Congress by both sides.
Who doesn't want this conversation to be had?
Oh, wow. There's a few. Most particularly are those who've been involved in any legacy efforts regarding this program. There's some very specific reasons why you would not want to have this conversation. So let's perfect example. You're company A, I'm company B. Aerospace company. And the government comes in and says, hey, listen, I want you to analyze this piece of material, right? Now, there's supposed to be fair competition amongst companies, but they give it to you. 10 years later, you're now a multi-billion-dollar aerospace corporation. My company goes bankrupt, 200 people lose their jobs, and oh, by the way, my shareholders lose their investment, right? So now you've got SEC violations, you've got, unfair business practices being pushed by the government, certain individuals to certain companies. So there's real liability there. And then you've got the fact that people in the government simply didn't do what they were supposed to do and inform certain members of Congress. This goes back to your question about what made Harry Reid so angry, because he knew that there were these secret deals going back and forth. And of all the people in the Senate who should have known, he should have known. And he was deliberately being kept out of the loop. And furthermore, you even have some presidents that were never briefed into this topic.
Such as?
Well, most of them recently. I mean, some of them now are learning about it after the fact. Some presidents were briefed into it. Some presidents were not briefed into it. And so think about that, for example, right? So let's look at this in the context of what it means to be an American, right? We believe in the principles of the Constitution because this is a government for the people and by the people, right? And we all agree to that. And the government is here to serve the interests of the people, not the other way around. And the government is comprised of people. Well, imagine a scenario where you have somebody in the government making a unilateral decision not to inform their chain of command, not to inform the president, and not to inform certain people in Congress. Why? Well, because for whatever reason, they look at them as temporary hires. So that is what drives me to do what I'm doing. UFOs, UAP aside, to me, it's a matter of accountability and transparency. I personally believe that Americans can handle the truth, and it's up to nobody in government to make a unilateral decision what you should be allowed to know. Now, if we're talking about protecting sources and methods, we're talking about protecting military operations, I got it. There's a reason to have things classified. But the mere fact that these things are real, the mere fact that we may not be alone in the universe, no organization, institution, religion, government has the right to keep that from people, right? And where I come from, my father was a revolutionary in Cuba. He was part of the Bay of Pigs invasion, came here with not a dime in his pocket. And my family is in exile from Cuba because of that participation. And he told me about 2 years ago, right before he died, I'll share something with you. And maybe this kind of gives you some insight of why I do what I do. About a month before my father passed away, I had a chance to go on a nice long road trip with him. And I knew he was dying. He didn't tell me he was, but I could see the signs it was coming. And so about halfway through the trip, I asked him actually flippantly, and I feel kind of guilty about it. I said, Dad, what do you think is the greatest threat to humanity? And I'm thinking to myself, disease, pandemic, terrorism. And he looked to me and he said, son, corruption. And I said, corruption? Like financial corruption? He says, no, son, any corruption. Corruption is a mere act of trading away one of your core values in exchange for something else. And so whether it's financial corruption, religious corruption, governmental corruption, moral corruption, it doesn't matter. And when you do that in government, when you're in a government official and you are corrupt, you begin to chisel away the very foundation of what democracy is. And from there, it's a very slippery slope down to tyranny. So my beef with this is people in the government that have historically kept this knowledge out of the channels that it was supposed to be in the first place, not letting Congress know what's going on, spending billions of dollars of taxpayer money and never informing Congress about what's going on. Same thing with the presidents and their chain of command. You can't have, you're not going to get rid of corruption until you have transparency and accountability. And you only have accountability through transparency. So it all starts with transparency. If you want all this to be fixed, you got to be transparent. And, the government doesn't always like to do that. Now, I also want to be clear. I'm not villainizing the whole government. I love my country. I love my government. And it does a lot of things really, really good. I think it's the best country in the world. But with that said, because of, like you, I took an oath to this country to defend it from all enemies, foreign and domestic. Full stop. And by the way, you and I have never been relieved of that oath. I don't know, maybe you have. They never told me I don't have to do that anymore. So for me, it turns out that part of the enemy was the bureaucracy itself. It wasn't working in a way that allowed even my own Secretary of Defense, a guy I was in Afghanistan with, right? This guy was incredible, Jim Mattis. The elements in the Pentagon wouldn't even let me brief him. Talk about a need to know, right? This is a guy who thrives on more information, not less. This is, the warrior monk. This is Mad Dog. This is call sign chaos. And even him, they wouldn't brief. on this topic. So that's a failure of the system. And by the way, I don't want to villainize any one person because their reasoning for it, I understand. I don't agree with it, but I can respect it because it makes sense. There were several reasons why they didn't want the boss to be informed. It wasn't that they were making unilateral decisions saying, he doesn't deserve it. There were some very specific reasons, which again, if at some point you want, I'm happy to talk about those. But
for the last 4 years, every time we do podcasts, I have to ask Rob or somebody, hey, can you pull up this news? Can you pull up that? Which way do these guys lean? Can you go back to the timeline of, eventually after asking so many questions, I said, why don't we design the website that we want aggregated? We don't write the articles. We feed all of it in using AI. So 8 months ago, I hired 15 machine learning engineers. They put together our news site called vtnews.ai. What this allows you to do when you go to it, if you go to that story right there that says Trump proposes overtime pay, click on it. It'll tell you how many sources are reporting on this from the left. If you go to the right, Rob, it says left sources, click on it. Those are all the left sources. If I want to go to right sources, those are the two. If I want to go to center, I go there. Now, if I want to go all the way to the top and I want to find out a lopsided story, a story that only one side is reporting on, either the left or the right. So if you notice the first one, will say Zelensky announces release of 49 Ukrainians from Russia. Notice more people on the left are reporting on that than the right. If I go to the middle one, same thing. If I go to the right one, same thing. You can see what stories are lopsided. And if I pick one of the stories, pick the first story, click on a Trump one, proposes overtime tax cuts. To the right on the AI, I can ask any question I want, but click on the first question that has it. It says, what is the political context and potential motivation behind the Trump's new tax cut proposal? Click on the question mark. It explains exactly what the motives are. So for you to use, whether you're doing a podcast, you're in the middle of a podcast, or you just want to know it for yourself, you're busy like myself. And last but not least, this is all AI doing this, so machine learning engineers. Go all the way to the top. I can go to timelines, and see how far back a story goes. Pick the Israel-Palestinian conflict. If I want to go to that and go back and see why are those 2 days a big spike, I'll have Rob pull it over to go to those 2 days with a big spike, and I'll see exactly what happened on that day or the previous day, and many other features vtnews.ai has. So simply go to vtnews.ai. There's a freemium model, there's a premium, and then there's the insider. If you want to have unlimited access to the AI, click on the VTAI Insider. You can now become a member effectively today.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.